in the village that are able to be subdivided that are slightly smaller than what is allowed by zoning, and you know, that strategy that we developed, that those numbers for the potential number of lots. We do know those numbers, yes.
So we do know that, so we know that, we would know how many people would be put into that, into those substandard lots.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially. Yeah. Would we know also what the impact of mixed use by right, and whether that would include more, would encourage more apartments and retail, or apartments and office?
That number would not change whether something is permitted by right or by special use permit. In terms of the build-out number, it's going to be the same, because you can't assume, oh, 20% are not going to go for a special use permit, and some people will go for. So that number would not change in terms of mixed use.
So the only thing that would change so far would be the substandard lots issue.
Okay.
And what about the duplex? What the numbers we've already, you know, put forth, the minimum lot size for duplexes in the 4 districts. What about that?
You could certainly find those numbers out. Yeah. I'm confused as to where you're going with this.
Well, it's where I was going in the very first place. I'm kind of surprised you're confused. What I'm trying to find out is, what have we done? What's the impact of what we've done? Is it a big impact?
In terms of the number of people?
Yeah, in terms of the people, in terms of the density. Is it a big impact? Is it a small impact? You know, you know, a year, 2 years ago, I wondered why we weren't trying to do this as we went. And, you know, and so here it comes again. We've done something, and, you know, the comprehensive plan is pretty specific that we should, you know, before we go into changing the zoning, we ought to know what impact it's going to have. And I think that would just give me some comfort, knowing what impact we're going to have, what we've already done, and then to know what kinds of impact we'd be planning to make. Like if we had a target number even for R20, that this would be a, you know, we've already made this kind of impact in the other areas, and it would help us to define the limits of what we're trying to do.
I think what you're going to have in terms of the build-out is, if you, once you lower the numbers, or if you lower the numbers for both duplex and multifamily, is you're going to have, because you don't know how a certain piece of property is going to be developed or redeveloped, is you might have a range. I mean, if one lot becomes a single family, then it's going to be a different number than if it becomes a multifamily. So there will be some variables in there as well. And
the build-out numbers are based on single-family build-out. They're not based on multifamily at all, because it says that.
Right.
So, you know, there would be an impact based on what we've done already. So I guess what I'm wondering is whether we can get some quantification of where we are already.
I guess it depends on if everybody wants, you know, to take a halt and do that, because it will take some time. Yeah.
Michael, did you get some input you wanted to make?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where we're going with this. Nancy, is your concern that the things we're doing are in conflict with the comprehensive plan? Is that one of your concerns?
I think I've always wanted us to do the comprehensive plan survey before we went ahead with multifamily in R20. Because I felt that this was it still feels like, maybe it doesn't feel like it to anybody else, but it feels like it's sort of an opportunistic change that came about because we had to make a correction. And now we're actually exploring a whole other area of affordable housing that's going to impact a neighborhood that's very residential, and that previously, you know, for whatever reason, the powers that be decided that there wouldn't be, or they'd make it kind of impossible to have multifamily housing. So I'm very concerned about having...
Since the comprehensive plan was written.
Yes.
And adopted, several things have changed. The first thing that's changed is we have a mandate from the state to create affordable housing in Jamestown.
I'm aware of that. We just spent 2 years.
Since the comprehensive.
We just spent 2 years working on a plan that was that was the purpose.
The next thing that's changed is in November or October they adopted this new special use district zoning amendment.
You mean the one we just finished?
The one we're still working on, right? Isn't that what we're doing tonight?
Yes.
And so one of our mandates is to review the ordinance that was just adopted and tweak it so that it actually is a workable document.
As I understand it, we are not actually looking at the whole ordinance and tweaking all aspects. We are looking at something that was considered an oversight and correcting it, quote unquote. And that doesn't stop us from looking at any aspect of it.
Right.
But my question is, the bigger an aspect we decide to look at it, the more I want the comprehensive plan process, which we've started, to at least ask, people around the neighborhoods what kinds of changes they would be more comfortable with.
Well, I guess my question is this. Is the comprehensive plan the law of the land, or is it a living document that changes as we go? In other words, are we already in the process of rewriting the new comprehensive plan? Is the comprehensive plan that currently exists no longer actionable? And my guess is that it isn't.
No, it's still in effect.
Yeah, but it doesn't really reflect
What we
what
do,
we have to do.
we have to be we have to be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. I certainly wouldn't want us to not do that in other areas.
Well, when we rewrite the comprehensive plan, we adopt a new one, that's not going to be in compliance with the existing one. It's going to be a whole new thing.
Of course, but, that's to your
So
point,
that's
that it's a
what-
living document,
That's
and
what
we
tells
have
me
a
is that
process.
it's
But we
not
have a
something.
process by which the living document
Right.
changes and gets updated. Rather than, what I guess I'm wondering about is that's the process. We update the comprehensive plan, we make our changes in accordance with it.
Well, that's the question that I want answered. We're going to go by the comprehensive plan, or we're going to go by the ordinance that was just recently adopted, or we're going to go by the mandate to create affordable housing. Are all those things in conflict?
They should not be in conflict, no.
Could we have a clarification on that? Because I thought that we had a small checklist of things that had to be fixed, and that's why the council has produced the two memorandums that they've recently produced on multifamily and duplex permits. And so we have a small checklist to deal with before we deal with anything else.
You're absolutely
As
right.
much as any of us would like to fix a lot of things.
Duncan, you're absolutely right. So maybe we can back to square one. Table 3-2. When the new zoning ordinance was approved, Lisa, help me along here.
Which was consistent with the 2004 comprehensive plan.
Right. The lot size requirements for duplex and multifamily were omitted.
Correct.
And what you've recommended we do is reinstate those lot size requirements on table 3-2 as we have in our packet from last meeting. That would be the minimal action we would take tonight, is just agree, do that, or decide not to do that.
Plus the rewritten Article 10.
Right. All right, that's, yeah. And then, now the second part of that, you're right, Duncan, is the rewrite of Article 10, which Lisa has proposed to us. That would be the second step we would take, which would be the minimum change. And Duncan, are you suggesting that we go there and stop, get that done, and then decide?
I suggest that we do that, because then that releases the council from the moratorium. And we do that, as I think we've already said, with the full knowledge that there are changes that may or may not be tied into the comprehensive plan, but as it exists today. But those changes to the R8, R20, and so on that you're talking about, Nancy, I think will be taken care of. I think that the changes that Lisa has recommended effectively, for want of a better term, prohibit multifamily development within the context of this discussion.
Now, how we got off on to these revised charts, I think, Michael, to your point, I think your point was that 200,000, that you didn't want to go forward until you had more data in front of you.
Right, and looking at these